So look what just came in the mail from the folks over at eTrailer.com, my official channel sponsor. This right here is actually really cool. It is designed to be a storage area for stuff that you might have outside on your trailer. So most people know that we recently got a brand new Texas Pride 30,000 pound built, 25,990 pound rated deck over gooseneck trailer. And it's got storage underneath it, and I use the heck out of that storage, but sometimes you want a little bit of extra storage. And I was talking to the folks over at eTrailer, and they sent me a link to this, and they said, you know what, we have this thing. We haven't really featured it very much. You may really like it because people who have utility trailers, lawn care trailers, racing trailers, deck over trailers, lowboy trailers, absolutely love this. And I think I'm gonna love it too. So let's go over what this is, get this thing put together, and show you what it's all about. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so what's cool about this is that all the components are pretty intelligently made so you can pack them up in a really small box, or at least it arrives in a really small box, relatively speaking, because they made hinges on it. So all of the main panels are hinged. And those hinges make it a lot easier to assemble because I don't have to assemble as much of it. A lot of it comes pre-assembled. And the instructions are basically this one pager right here with 4 steps and a small little diagram of what it's supposed to look like when you're done. So these pieces right here are going to be the sides or the ends of it. These openings are going to face down, and these are your mounting locations to secure it to the trailer. And the rest of everything essentially just uses these bolts and lock nuts to assemble it and tighten it together. So let's get this thing put together real quick so I can show you what it looks like. It is heavy, and what's kind of cool, and let me see if I can find something to compare it to. The finish on it looks virtually identical to the finish that Gen Y uses on their hitches. So this is a Gen Y finish. And this is the finish on this RackEm storage cage. Interesting, huh? That's pretty cool, and that's a good thing because Gen Y puts an incredible finish on their hitches, and if it holds up as well on this thing, that's a really, really, really good finish. Okay, so I'm looking at the instructions here because I'm wondering if I'm missing some washers. I don't think I am, but it's kind of interesting how they've done this. So the holes that these bolts thread through are significantly larger than the size of the bolt itself. And there's no washer on one end, but there's a lock nut on the other end. And I'm adding washers to these because I don't see any, and it doesn't look like there are any in the diagram as well. It's just nuts and bolts. That said, essentially we're just putting 4 bolts in on each end, so you can see that we have them in here, and I have the washers already in place. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other end here, and then the bottom part right there just kind of unfolds and drops in place, and then you have some bolts that go down like that. I'm not going to tighten any of them up yet because those holes are so large that it makes it really, really difficult to get everything squared up the way you want it. So I'm going to put the whole thing together, and then I'm going to tighten up the bolts just so it sits flush and it's square, so whenever we move it to the trailer, it's going to sit nice and flat on the trailer. And then we'll put this part in right here and get it bolted down kind of as a last step. But it's coming along. Something that is kind of cool though, they actually make a cover for this as well with pneumatic hinges. So you can basically put a cover to lock everything in place and just prevent things from kind of walking off when you're not at your trailer 24/7. So that is really cool. So you can get hinges that essentially mount to these areas right here, and then you can fold a hinge down on top of this, or a cover that's very similar to that down on top of here, and lock this whole assembly up with your stuff inside of it, so you just don't have to worry again about stuff walking off on you. So we're going to continue putting this all together, then we're going to drop this in place and we'll tighten everything up and see how it looks. But it's pretty large. This thing has some pretty good sized dimensions to it. I'll take some measurements on it as well here in a second. Okay, so I got 8 bolts in, 2, 2, and then 2 and 2. And they're not tight yet, but this centerpiece right here just dropped in place very, very easily. I have it with the grill or the grate side pointed up. I don't specifically know if that's the direction it needs to go. I don't think it really matters that much, but it kind of matches the profile here on the end. Now what I'm going to do is drop the bolts in here, and I think there's going to be 8 of them as well, 2, 4, 6, 8. and we will start tightening everything up once all the bolts are in place. But this thing's coming along. You get an idea of at least what it looks like, right? It's gonna be pretty cool. It is pretty heavy though, so this probably weighs about 100 pounds when everything is said and done. So it's best to probably have a friend or someone help you load this in place on your trailer. Okay, so I have the catalog of all their products, and this is what it is. This is the RA14 basket kit. It bolts to the side rails of an open trailer, can hold a large variety of equipment, tools, supplies, and more. It bolts directly to a 6.5 foot wide trailer and comes with a 6-inch angle iron kit that will allow it to fit trailer widths between 72 and 84 inches. Additional lift kit is available with the 2-inch height. Basically, you can raise it up so you can park a mower underneath the front of it, which is really cool. It's pre-drilled to accept a lockable lid. I think I mentioned that. That's the RA14L. So it's basically the same thing, but the L at the end. And all hardware is included. And it does not include actually the mounting hardware itself. On the instructions, it says that the mounting hardware is not included because there's different ways of mounting it to different types of trailers. I would tend to agree. So I'm going to use probably regular, like large construction screws or structural screws to put it into the lumber if I can get it spaced properly to do it on the trailer. So it'll just be mounted to the deck boards, the 2x6s. But I might end up ultimately putting some lag bolts through there and just securing it with bolts and washers on the other side. But I think for how we're going to be using it, I don't think structural screws would have any issue holding up to whatever this is subjected to. But yeah, we have the bottom in place, we have the bolts in place, we just need to tighten everything up. Okay, so we are all done. Everything is tightened up. It's one solid piece now. Interesting size nuts and bolts, 17 millimeter heads, which again is kind of interesting size, but able to get the whole thing together. I'm going to say the entire setup assembly time is probably less than 10 minutes. It's very, very, very simple to do. I love the fact that everything is hinged, so it just folds up in the boxes. Whenever you're unboxing it, you just unfold them. It's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, and then just a bunch of bolts that you have to use. 16 bolts, I believe, 8 for the ends, and then 8 for the bottom. And then just a 17 millimeter wrench, 17 millimeter impact driver. You might want to supply your own washers if you want. I put them in even though they're not included. But yeah, super, super simple. Again, my channel sponsor, eTrailer.com, carries this plus a ton of other stuff, including the lid. I may ultimately add the lid to it, but the real reason for this, for me, is in case I need to carry things like tire chocks or, you know, extra binders, stuff like that that I don't want to have, you know, hanging below the trailer in the toolboxes, or simply if I run out of space in the toolboxes. So this is going to be really nice, and it tucks so far forward right behind the gooseneck of the trailer that it's really not going to take up much room, and it's, you know, specifically built to be able to work with folks that have lawn care, landscaping businesses, trailers like that, or deck over trailers, lowboy trailers where you need to carry extra gear and you're willing to give up maybe 2 feet up front for that to happen, because this doesn't take up a lot of room. It's maybe 2 feet 2 feet deep by 2 feet by what, about 6.5, 7 feet wide. So really, really cool setup. Again, I'll throw a link in the description of this video if this is something you're interested in. Okay, so we have the RackEm heavy-duty cargo basket out on the Gooseneck trailer. We have to remove the solar panels and my little angle iron brackets there that I use to hold my tire chocks in place. This thing is really cool, 23 inches by 79 inches if you're looking at the dimensions. Also supports up to 250 pounds and has one heck of a really, really nice finish on it. That said, we're going to go ahead and get this stuff up here taken off so we can move this basket to this front position and then secure it to the planks on the Gooseneck trailer. Okay, so I got a bit of a problem, and that is the fact that because these legs are about 6 inches tall and make this thing sit up, I will not have clearance for the winch line to come out if I ever need to use the winch. Basically, the cage will be blocking it. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm actually going to cut the legs off at about the 1 inch mark right here, and then we're simply going to bolt the legs down using the screw holes that are already there, and that'll secure it to the deck of the trailer. So that's kind of the plan. I think it should work out just fine. The challenge I have though is these bolts right here stick down a little further as well. So I basically have to cut this so it clears the bolt right there and figure out how I want to do this. Okay, so what I decided to do was cut the legs off, which I did. I went ahead and hit them with some Rust-Oleum at the very ends here just so they don't rust. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to attach it down, but I'm actually thinking of taking these bolts out right here and replacing them with those large structural screws right there, because it'll still hold the base in place the exact same way. The difference is it's going to sit completely flat because I don't have to worry about these right here protruding up off the bottom. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. This ended up being a little bit more of a project than I thought it was going to be, but we'll get it taken care of. Well, that looks about 1 trillion times better. I don't actually need this in here anymore. I could just remove this and secure this directly down, which I think I'm going to do, mainly because by doing so, I eliminate a part that could eventually start rusting. So everything would be sitting directly on the boards themselves. You're still going to get drainage down there because of the slats between the boards. But this would actually work out a little better for me. And again, I can't think of any reason why I absolutely need this. Plus, if I keep chains in there, I run the risk with chains that the hooks or things like that are going to catch on to that. So I think I'm just going to remove this piece right here, and I'll secure the actual perimeter of it with the holes that are in place right there that the bolts normally went into. There we go, all done. I only had to use 6 fasteners, 2, 2, and 2 right here, because these 2 would have to go into steel and I don't need to do that. But this thing ain't going nowhere. I mean, it is really, really well secured. It's going to do exactly what I want it to do, which is to hold stuff like this. Keep that stuff from coming out. I got to figure out where I want to remount my solar panel. That's going to be my my next little challenge. You know, that said, we live in this society where when something doesn't work the way you intentionally plan, a lot of people just return it and they're like, man, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. The spacing wasn't right. But the cool thing about stuff is that you can typically modify stuff and you don't really hurt it in any way, because many times it accomplishes still what you're trying to do. But I love the fact that for me, all I needed to do was cut those 2 legs off right there and take the bottom part out, which I didn't have to. I could have kept it in here, but now you can see everything goes straight down to the boards, which is really nice, and I don't have to worry about wear and tear on another piece of equipment. Plus, these are going to drain off really well if water collects, if it rains, stuff like that, and it's providing me exactly what I was looking for, essentially like a playpen for all my pieces of equipment that I don't want to just, you know, bounce off the trailer, but I still need to take with me, like tire chocks, maybe extra binders, maybe extra things, fuel cans, stuff like that. And I can still put the cool top on here that will close down and lock in place if I want to secure everything. So this is really cool. It's a phenomenal upgrade. It's really, really functional. It's going to help me out tremendously. It took very little time to assemble, and it took very little time to disassemble to take the bottom part off so I could mount it the way I wanted to mount it. The saw cut through that stuff really nice and easily. And quite frankly, I'm really pleased with this. This is going to work out really well, and I don't have any fear that this is just going to come tumbling off when I'm going down the road, because it is going into 2x6 planks in multiple areas to prevent that from happening. But I'd love to know your feedback. Drop a comment below. What do you think of something like this? Could you use something like this on your trailer, whether it's a big gooseneck deck over like this, whether it's a utility trailer like that over there, or a lawn care landscape trailer? What would you use something like this on, and would it accomplish, I guess, what you're trying to do with it? And big shout out to my friends over at eTrailer.com, my official channel sponsor, who provided this to me for review and evaluation. Yeah, I modified it a little bit, but who cares? It works the way I need it now, right? I'll put a link in the description of this video. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.